This is part one of our class. How can we know the Bible is true? I'm simultaneously doing this on video and teaching the class. If I'm not always looking at the camera, it's because of that. All right. This background, it says Easter. I just used the visual from last week because our design team is a lot better at these kinds of things than I am. So let me briefly hit this first topic, okay? So the question, how can I know the Bible is true? The way I'm thinking about this, which I think you'll recognize, is really there's a question underneath that question, okay? How can I know the Bible is true? That's the question for this class, but there is a question really underneath that question, which I think is this question: is the God of the Bible the true God? So that's why I want to start with this question on this first day, because that's the actual deeper question. Is the God of the Bible the true God? So the veracity of the Bible, the credibility of the Bible, and the God that Bible proclaims, it's really kind of one and the same. And the reason Christians believe in the Bible is because they've experienced the power and truth of that God, right? It often goes together. And then they regularly experience the power and truth of that God when the Bible is taught and proclaimed. And so then the truth of the Bible consistently keeps getting confirmed. And so then over time, even if they started off shaky in their beliefs about the Bible, or they're not sure about this part or that part of the Bible, more and more Christians will be like, because like everybody has some problem with some part of the Bible, even if you've been a Christian a long time. So, but when you start to see the power and weight of the whole Bible, and you could feel this in your life again and again and again and again, you start to trust the whole Bible because you're really trusting that God. Does that make sense? That's the first point I want to make, okay? I gave you a reading, which, I won't go all over today, but this will help you with this subject matter. A lot of people don't know that there aren't an infinite number of views on God. So in this essay, which I'll have readily available either on our website, I'm actually probably going to post it to a blog site, so then it'll always be available, and you can go read it. It's a paper I wrote a certain number of years ago for our Seeker seminar. It's specifically for people who are not Christians, and to help them, explore and be seekers and consider Christianity. And in this paper, I basically argue there's only 7 major views on God. Some people might argue 8. Okay, you can quibble, but it doesn't matter. Some theologian or philosopher would say there's 9. Okay, really, whatever. Okay, because the important point is that it's a manageable number. There's not 100. There's not 200. I say that right at the very beginning. There's a manageable number. And quite frankly, for most people, you won't even take 7 seriously. You can immediately, as soon as you start to understand that all the conceptions of God that are out there, you'll immediately go, no, 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 no. Okay, that just immediately will not be credible to you, and you can narrow the field right away. So the first question, when we start talking about the veracity of the Bible, the underlying question is what kind of a God are you seeking? So even if you're not a Christian and don't consider yourself a believer of the Bible, you're not even sure you're a theist, you're an atheist. Maybe even there is no God, or I'm not sure if there is a God. If there is a God, I'll bet you want that God to have certain qualities, certain attributes. That's the word that theologians use, attributes. And most people don't know this. This actually should just be taught in every high school. There should be like a basic, and even public high schools, quite frankly, because secular people who aren't even Christians should at least have some basic handle on all the key, views on God. And if so, that would give some better framework for if someone has this belief of, about Islam, for instance, or if they say, I'm a Buddhist, they can immediately put them into some kind of mental category. So even at that level, it's helpful. But here we're talking about to help you, especially if you even have a doubt in this room, see that the question of the Bible is intimately related to the kind of God that you're seeking. Okay, so I'm going to put out some attributes, and I'm going to just quickly run through these because I'll bet you all these are attributes that you want in your God. And if there was a real God, you would want these attributes. Okay? And all the religions do not proclaim this about whatever conception of God or gods that they believe in. They don't hold all these attributes. Okay? So I'll just kind of get you. All these attributes really only come together in the Bible. I'll just give you the argument right at the beginning. Okay? But let's just start here. Okay? First of all, don't you want your God to be eternal? If your God is temporary and dies, that's pretty lousy. So if you put your hope in this God and then he's gone 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now, then whatever your hope has died. So, the Greek gods were not eternal. They could die. And actually in Greek mythology, they do die. So, we call them myths, but they weren't myths, thousands of years ago. They were the religions that people believe. Like they believe in Apollo, or they believe in Zeus, they believe in the whole pantheon, etc. Well, just first right there, anybody who believes in a polytheistic conception of God, they're not even sure if they can say their God is eternal. So that seems like a super basic. Everybody believes their God is forever. Not true. Okay? Second, God is omnipotent, or maybe the more common phrase, almighty. Okay? So, again, all polytheistic conception of gods do not believe in that. They only believe my God is only the God of the seas. That's where he has his power. Okay? That's Poseidon, for instance. Okay? So, soon as you have eternal and omnipotent, you have already eliminated most of the conceptions of God that are out there. Okay? And so right away, whatever they say is their holy book, if that's not the God you're looking for, now I get it. That's not necessarily the truth of the question, but it matters the kind of God you're seeking. And there is, even the Bible teaches you seek a God, a God in a certain kind of way. Actually, the Bible is saying you're actually seeking this God. So it sounds like, when I was a young man, it sounded like a circular argument. You're seeking this God. Therefore, you should believe in the Bible. The Bible is an infallible book because it comes from this God. As a young man who had doubt questions, I was like, that's a circular argument, man. So that's what my family's holy book says. And then that is convenient. That is true. I do want him to be eternal and omnipotent. Okay? But is that still true? But let's just start right here, okay? Third, omnipresent. So one of the things that just as I start to roll through this, I'm just trying to help you understand that all these attributes about God that the theologians have drawn from the Bible, all these attributes are from the Bible, describing the God of the Bible, they're just not some abstract idea in theology that you learn in a class and then that the pastors know this stuff and you don't because they went to seminary and they had an A in their theology class and you never studied that stuff, so you wouldn't get an A. That's super academic and actually nonsense, okay? It's supremely relevant and practical for your life. So let's just take omnipresent. Some gods are at this temple, but they're not anywhere else, okay? Or some God is only present and powerful only in the sea or only in the sky. So, or the God is far above us, transcendent, but is not present, omnipresent, everywhere you go, anywhere you can be, right? So if you want that God to be present to you wherever you go, well, you want a God that has that attribute. And by the way, we're not even just talking about physical location, omnipresent in your darkness. So if you get to a place in your life and the God that you believe in is not present where you are dark, in your soul, you just go into a dark, dark place. And there is no God there. It matters that he's omnipresent. 4, personal. So, is a God a person? Is he a person you can have a personal relationship with? Okay, now you are really eliminating a lot of the different conceptions of God that are out there. And this is absolutely central to the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible invites you. He is clearly a person. and you can have a relationship with him. In fact, that's what he does. He invites people into a relationship with him, which is, if you think about this, really incredibly strange. The illustration I use in the essay is that you are a human being and you want to have a personal relationship with an ant. Well, that would be hard, because can an ant have capacity to converse with you? That you, as a human being, live on such a profoundly different plane of reality, and your powers and your abilities are all so much higher than an ant, that actually a personal relationship with an ant can't happen, because, well, for one thing, ants aren't persons. But this is part of what the Bible teaches. God is a person, and then he made a creature that can have personhood like God, in the image of God, and thus we have capacity of relationship with him. And then he offered a relationship which the Bible calls covenant, which is at the center of salvation itself. Okay, so right away, these four: eternal, omnipotent, omnipresent, personal. Let's go to just a couple more practical stuff. What kind of God are you seeking? I'll bet you want to be able to pray to this God, at least to him or to her or to it. God will answer. How about that one? So there are lots of religions have a concept of a God. They pray to the God, but the God never answers. Or you're not sure if he answered, and lots of Christians are not sure if God answered. But guess what? Most Christians, as they go through our lives, start going, yeah, God answered that one. I wasn't sure if he answered that one. And this one, he seemed to have said no. But yeah, he answered that prayer. I didn't like the answer. It was a no. But there was lots of times it was a yes. And there was a lot of good answers, or some even surprising answers. How about a God who sees you and cares about you? So that kind of goes back to omnipresence. But there are impersonal gods that are present everywhere, or deistic gods that aren't present, but they do see, he sees you. A deistic God is above all time and place and can see you, but doesn't care about you. How about that? Okay, so Thomas Jefferson believed in God. I don't know if he prayed, but and I think he did pray, but I don't think he ever expected a personal relationship or to get actual answers from the deistic conception of the God that he believed in, which he thought was the God of the Bible. But then he turned around and took the Bible and started cutting out all parts of the Bible that he thought was irrelevant and came up with this doctored version. That's Thomas Jefferson's deistic God, okay? God sees and cares about little people. I'm going to call them little people. Those not considered important or powerful in the world. So in the West, that means we want a God who cares not just about important people or rich people or powerful people. Which, let's go to the next. Other attributes. So that relates to, you want your God to be righteous and just. So lots of gods proclaimed by other people and other religions. There's plenty of gods in the Hindu pantheon that are not righteous. Okay? And there are gods that are straight up oppressive. And then, of course, there are gods, I'm not even sure if they call them gods. They might call them the demonic or something, who are not good. Okay? How about a God that doesn't lie? So he's truthful. So what you hear from God, and that's another important thing. It's very, very important. If the Bible is God's word, is it true? And it doesn't have a lie in it. And it will stay true because that God will not die. And his power will not go away. And the power of that truth will not go away. Is he loving, merciful, kind, and forgiving? Especially, let me emphasize that last one, forgiving. You and I are sinners. You're going to fail goodness. So we really, really need a God who loves you, will be merciful to you, and is forgiving. Again, most concepts of God actually don't teach that. And the fact that, we live in, post-Christian secular West, and people don't even think that the God as forgiving is important, that's crazy talk. If you actually want a real God in your life, you want a forgiving God. And just to wrap this up, and we'll close out this video, what kind of God are you seeking? He can and will reach you. He will change you and rescue you, which we call salvation, which we call redemption. And in the Bible, that's the God that's proclaimed. And then it's not even just say God saves you. He actually, there are stories of it. It's like these are true stories. These aren't mythological stories. God did this. He did this. He did this. He rescued his people, even though they were actually quite wretched. Okay? And then, of course, the last one is, and then this is really the question of this class, is this God real? Is this God true? So just to wrap up this first lesson, what kind of a God are you seeking? The Bible is proclaiming a God like this, has all these attributes. And one of the things I want to see is if you want to say, well, maybe this God isn't the real God. Other people believe in God, right? Well, I'll bet you're looking for a God with these kinds of attributes. You're not going to find it in any other holy book. Okay, so that's really the first argument. There are only 7 major views on God. If you want a personal God as almighty, righteous, and eternal, whom you can pray to and who will hear you, you've already narrowed the list down to 3. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Okay, so now you only have 3 possibilities. And by the way, all 3 of those religions say it's the same God. It's interesting too. That's weird. They're the only ones that believe in a God like this. And then it says, if you want all the attributes listed above that I just listed, now you're actually down to 1. Now you can X out Islam and Judaism. And now you're down to Christianity. And Christianity is the God of the whole Bible, because Jews only believe in the first 39 books. They don't even call it 39 books because they have some of the books, pushed together. But they call it Tanakh or Hebrew Scriptures. And the God of the whole Bible has all these attributes. And so the only holy book, as I would like to put it, who reveals a God with all the above attributes, no other book or worldview has this kind of God. That's the first case I'd like to make. Okay.